Well, welcome everybody. It is October 6th, 2022. This is episode number 12 of The Wrap, a show rounding up all things Zwift from the last week. We talk racing, we talk events, we talk fashion, we talk tech here today. But first of all, we always talk about what have me and Anna been up to on mostly things related to Zwift for the last week. I'm Nathan Guerra, Anna Russel next to me. I'm coming out of Wisconsin of the US of A, and Anna is somewhere in New Zealand. I never really know where, but so you're gonna have to give me like some geography about New Zealand, or I just need to come and visit to figure out what is happening in the lands down under.
Yeah, you need to come and visit. It's we're in the top of the North Island. I'm in the top of the North Island, but it's a pretty small island, so it's not too hard to get to everywhere. So you should definitely come. There's great riding here, Nathan. You would love it. Great mountain biking too.
So just to relate to what you just said there, Wisconsin, I say that and like it's in the top of America. Like, does that give you like any idea whatsoever of like where I am in your head? No, exactly, right? Like,
No.
it's the top of this island. Okay, cool. Sounds good. I'm out paddling somewhere, like trying to find. You're you're searching the Midwest ranges. You're gonna be stuck somewhere in the middle of Idaho, or like Nebraska. You'll be left in Nebraska somewhere on Highway 80, wondering where is Wisconsin. But okay,
I've been to America. I think about 15 times, but I have never been to Wisconsin. So when you do say that, I'm like, I've got a picture in my head of what it looks like, and a lot of that is like wide open plains and a lot of cattle. Would that be right?
just about everywhere in America. That's like I mean, unless you go to the big cities and coast. I'm just gonna send you some Manitowoc Minute and Instagrams that are very local comedy to us, and then you'll get a very good idea of what it's all about here. But Quick Trip and Cheese and Fleet Farm and Tour of America's Dairyland. So Cheeseheads, football. Oh man, and I think we have the highest number of bars per capita in some of like our cities too. Like, yeah, that's
Okay, that's definitely.
There's lots of beer. There's lots of beer, like Pabst and Miller, and these very specific beer brands came out of this area. But all right, well, episode 12 already, Anna. Pretty exciting, actually. Things are going really well with the podcast. I'm really enjoying this. Today we have an awesome guest, Arielle Verharin, who has showed up on our radar through the Zwift Racing League, as well as a lot of the ZCL racing broadcasts. She's an Olympian on the BMX and now elite racer when it comes to racing for Team Ionian. So I'm really excited to have her on board. I'm hearing we're going to talk about some sort of terrible race that you had. There's holographic Zwifting now. So we've got what a lot are calling the Ghost Replay, holographic replay. So Zwift just launched that this week, actually yesterday, so you can race yourself. We're going to take a look at that real quick. We're going to talk about what is stream sniping, Flamme Rouge racing event, as well as which cycling code crosses over the best to Zwift, BMX, cycling, which cycling code?
You know, like BMX, track, road.
Okay,
downhill,
that's genre.
cyclocross.
I use the word
I'd say
genre.
code.
So yeah, we say genre. See, this is why we have to have this New Zealand, like silly American thing going on here. I don't know if that part's silly though. Like I know that you say Adidas. And like I've kind of like submitted to that. Like I've kind of said, okay, fine with the Adidas, like whatever. But yeah.
So we have like if you're a rider who rides, you know, a BMX and a mountain bike, you're like a cross code rider.
Okay, man, you guys are just cooler. Like, I mean, it's like cross code. Like now you can say cross code. I'm down with cross code. That sounds
okay. We'll use code.
Oh man, I'm gonna confuse people here when I start using Zed and crosscode and Adidas, and I'm like, do you even live here anymore? Like, where do you live, Nathan? All right, well, we usually talk about what we've been up to for the past week. I'll go first because I have a feeling we're going to be talking about your past week also in relationship to the Grand Prix this past week. This last weekend, I actually raced a really long standing fundraising event that also kind of served as a major southeastern Wisconsin tune-up / keep your form later fall race called the Fall Color Festival, and I did an Instagram post on it actually early this morning. So go check that out, or
I
my
saw that.
Facebook.
I saw that.
Yeah, and like I really thought a lot about it because this past weekend, while I was riding these trails, whenever I do these certain sections of course on these trails, especially if I'm racing the Fall Color Festival, which I haven't raced it in probably 10 years, maybe a little less than that. But I started racing it in 2003 or 2004, and it was kind of a mainstay of like, where am I at every year? And it was my first time being able to race against pros actually, because it's just this event where there is no rankings, there's no USA, there's no like anybody, because it's a fundraising event. But Trek used to sponsor it, and they would bring in their pro team, like to like be like, hey, come and take them on, right? And so, or at least if they were visiting, like a lot of times the pros would come and visit at headquarters around this time, probably signing contracts, doing their, visiting headquarters, whatever thing going on. And so, yeah, that was my first crack at like, whoa, who are these guys that are coming in and being brought in? Opportunities to race against them. If I did the major event, which is always the like 30-mile or 35-mile event, and it's pretty cool. They got activities all day long, racing at all different levels. Well, levels, but different mileage essentially, and you kind of figure out where you fit. But these sections of course out there, I get memories of like getting dropped by different people who are all way faster than me and going, okay, how do I get there? And then getting encouraged on, and then going back out there and riding these trails as like your local, where I go and just beat up on myself for training to figure out. And then Strava comes along and you start being able to compare times. And so I don't know, winning that event this past weekend definitely had a lot of reminiscence. I had tons of people come up to me and like, hey, Nathan, let's take a picture. And some dirt guys were there, which was really cool. Some other people who were a part of the Zwift community, so that was a lot of fun. And then also seeing a ton of the people who have put the work in to make mountain biking what it is locally here, as well as a lot of people I've been racing with forever that are essentially like, I can go back and look at videos and pictures from as far back as 2004, 2005, and these are people who
You looked young.
also
young on
racing.
that podium.
And that's 7 years later too. 8 years later than like when I first started racing there actually. So thanks, Anna. Really appreciate that. Are you saying I look old? What are you trying to say?
No. But I was like, is that Nathan or his son on that podium in the picture you put on Instagram? And I was like, oh no, it's Nathan. Nice. And did your son, he race? Did he do well?
So he, I think, did the kids race. He definitely won the dancing competition. They had like a dancing competition and all the kids danced, and then they got like a special little prize and stuff. But no, I think Micah and Milo just had fun. So my two little boys, I think they did the jumping, like they had like one of those big blow up castles and they were jumping all day, dancing all day, and there's brats and beer and it was, and there's like tech trails there. So like you can ride like all day long as a kid, you know what I mean? So yeah,
Cool.
pretty cool stuff. I also athletically raced the Zwift Racing League this past week. It went really, really well. And
It was fun. It was fun. Did you
super
like
fun.
that course?
And because I'm a punchy rider, I can sprint over and over and over again pretty well. So yeah, I really enjoyed that course as far as performance goes. I don't mind it. I know a lot of other people really cannot stand it. I saw a lot of it's like a love-hate relationship, I feel like, with Champs-Élysées in a forward direction.
So I think, yeah, I saw a lot of those posts as well about the course. And when I saw the course on there, I was like, this is a great course as long as you're in the main pack. If you get dropped, and I saw at the first sprint, there was probably about 8 people who got dropped from our group. I was like, that's just a really boring ride now. Like you're basically just riding alone. You can't get any points until the finish line. So you're just riding for an hour. like around and around. So I get it if you get dropped, it's not the best course. But if you don't get dropped and you're in the front pack, like I found it really fun. Like it was great. We tried we had Christy Tracy racing again, which was awesome. She's been out with injuries. So she was doing a whole bunch of lead outs for us. And man, we did a great lead out, Nathan. She pulled some sprinters out of the pack. And then as soon as they got up to her, she just dropped off. So they couldn't draft off her and dropped back to the pack. And we'd been all pulled up. So as soon as she dropped, we like used her draft and just powered ahead of her. And we had like 4 in the top 5, I think, on that sprint. It was so fun. And I think as well, what I like about multi-lap courses, as long as you're in that front pack, is, you know, you could stuff it up in one lap and then go, oh, okay, next lap, I'm going to do that a little bit different. So by the time you get to the, you know, laps 5, 6, 7, you've dialed it. Like I knew exactly when to go in those last laps. It was fun. It was a good time.
I can relate to that. I had some pretty good sprints early on, messed up lap 3, and then from there on, I don't know if I lost one as far as FAL goes. There was 2 off the front in ours. I have to agree with you there. Be a really don't get dropped on that. Like do everything you can to stay on when you go past the Arc de Triomphe, because if you get dropped, you're right. It's just a solo, boring ride, and not getting points. And to be honest, I watched back your stream to see what happened in the Americas East for the women a lot of times. And you took out a pack sprint, I saw. Like you full on against names. I mean, like we're talking, you know, Kolchinski's there, and I mean, there's some big. I was like, Anna's sprinting well. What's going on here? This is pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I think that came down to timing. So the first lap, I was like, let's just let Kolchinski in 2024 go, because they're just going to go and try and get all the points. But after that, I was like, man, you can use riders on that course. So as soon as people go, I'm just like honing in on their wheel, sitting there, and then there was that. You know when you just pick that perfect point to go and it works, and then you just do it every lap after lap, lap after lap, and you're just getting it every time. I was like, this is awesome.
It's the little. So it's kind of I think you have to go earlier than you actually do a lot of times. I get a little tricked because you see the green banner coming and you're like, oh, I think it's time. And it seems like it's coming up and you don't actually see the little rise to level off, because it kind of does a little 2-tier thing at the end. And it's really at that level off, if you can grab a wheel, people will accelerate you, and then bam, you come over the top like only a second or 2 after that level off, and then it kicks up again. If you go speed into that second kick up, I think FTS and the FAL are up for grabs there a lot of times.
Yeah, absolutely. I had James Barnes tune into my Twitch in a different ride I was doing, and he was giving me some great tips about when to go on segments, which I don't know if I'll share, but it was good. I guess you could watch a stream because he was commenting on it. But yeah, and I actually used those tips in this race. So thanks to James Barnes. That was awesome. But yeah, that was yeah, and then I woke up sick, so maybe I went too hard in that one. Really emptied the tank. I'm not used to riding 50K, I got to tell you. I was like, "Ooh, this is a lot. I've got a lot of nutrition with me." And I actually, and this comes down to my shocking weekend of racing, which kicked off with the Zwift Grand Prix. It was terrible, Nathan. Dead last. Like I was pushing, my heart rate was maxing out and I was going 3 watts per kg. I don't know what was going on, but it was not pretty. And I think one part of it, I think it was just one of those days, you know, like a terrible day. But as well, I think I can't get away in those races with not doing a warm-up. You know, like my warm-up is kind of like get on the bike, spin around at like 80 to 100 watts. And then in a race like Zwift Racing League, you start and you can kind of keep warming up in the pack, right? You can kind of just move around, and I'm used to doing that. Whereas there were 12 riders. Within a minute, we'd hit, you know, the first climb, and I got out of the saddle to, you know, push the numbers. I was like, oh my God, my legs feel like cement. Like it was horrible. So it's kind of ironic because last week when we had James on and he was talking about the weekend and he had to really process his bad result and get over it and talk with his partner, in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, come on, just get over it. It's just esport. I honestly felt the same. I went upstairs and was like, well, that's it. I'm off the team. I messaged our team manager and was like, cut me from the team. That was terrible. Just, I'm not at the right level. Just cut me. Let me leave. And she's like, oh my gosh, it's just a race. It's just one race. Get over yourself. I was like, oh no. But it has at least changed a few things. I did a proper warm up for the race yesterday. I've written a warm up protocol based off cyclocross because I thought that would be the closest kind of thing to a Zwift race, like a Zwift Grand Prix race, hard straight off the bat.
I actually saw your warm up and I was like, what is she doing? I've never seen her do this before. I actually saw that in your replay of your stream. I was like, she has a workout loaded up. What is Anna doing? What's going on? And so that's why I see now. And I commentated on the race and we saw you going up the reverse Queen of the Mountain in Yorkshire, I believe it was, correct? And you looked pretty good about halfway up. And then all of a sudden they started like attacking and they were attacking on the other side as well. And it was fast on the other side of the Queen of Mountain, it seemed like. And I'm like, where did Anna go? And you guys actually got back. You were right there, but you worked so hard to get there before Pot Bank. And I was like, oh, I don't know if this is happening, but I figured it was just a rough day. Like we were like, something's going on. Like we could tell. And on that Queens Highway, you cannot. I mean, you just go downhill and then straight into a Queen of the Mountain. I mean, you can't mess around. Like you got to be ready to go.
No. And I think, do you know what? Your words were ringing true in my head, Nathan. There was that race you had where you were like, it kind of made me feel better because I did so badly that you're like, something was wrong. Whereas if I was like kind of there and my numbers were fine, I'd be like, oh, okay. I guess
This
I'm
is
just
just
not
over
that
your
good.
head.
Whereas I was
Yeah.
Where I was like, no, the numbers were terrible. And it just was horrific. So I was like, okay, that kind of makes me feel better. Although I got to say, and it'll be great to, when we do talk to our guest Arielle today, is that level, that Grand Prix level is like insane now. It's unless you're top of your game there, you're just gone. Like there's no leeway. And I think what I found is I don't do a lot of training and I rely a lot on my Zwift craft. And Zwiftcraft you can get away with in Zwift Racing League because there's bigger packs and you can kind of, I don't know if you find this, if you know how to draft and you have really good timing, you can do well. But if you're in a race like Grand Prix where literally there's Olympians, world champion riders, world champion esport races, it's it kind of just comes down to a bit of a what fest, and you look at the race tomorrow for the men. I mean, you're going around Richmond. You can have the best Zwiftcraft in the world, but if you can't race really, really hard up Libby Hill, it doesn't matter. Like you're gone. There's no Zwiftcraft in that power. So I think a little bit is a realization that actually I kind of have to I actually have to do some proper training. I think that I can't just be like, oh, this is great. I know how to draft and I can pick really good bikes and I get the game. You need a lot of power now.
Yeah, and I think the reality of, Zwift racing and the specific training of it, I'm starting to think a lot about that because I'm thinking about certain kind of goals and things for my own Zwift racing. And I'm like, I actually got back in the weight room last night a little bit because this is the timing for the week now that I can. And, the training's starting to ramp up a little bit. How do you train specifically for Zwift racing is definitely an interesting thing, especially with the genre moving around a little bit, it feels like, as far as, or the code, the code. The Zwift code. Now, how do we? Okay, we'll talk about that later because then there's coding and code. But anyways, we should move on to our next topic. But yeah, I think definitely the Zwift racing and how you train for it and make sure at that top level in GP especially, and across all levels though, I think anybody who's trying to level up through the different ranks find themselves getting their teeth kicked in and in over their head the moment that they do have to upgrade to another level. I mean, it's like, whoa, this is a whole new ball game here, and I've got to actually think about if I want to race at this level. But Well, Zwift has launched their holographic replays, and this is a big one, actually. This has been really, really sought after. What's really interesting is that Zwift, across all of their content creators, it looks like, and news media, as well as like a ton of Zwift employees and figureheads within the company as well, have put out an announcement about it. I mean, they've been really working on this one for a while, and I think it is a game changer for me personally. I talked about it during Wednesday Worlds with Eric Schlange as well as Carissa Min a little bit. Like, my first go at this, I started setting PRs in the last, 30 days to 90-day PRs on the Hilly KOM forward and the Hilly KOM reverse without even really meaning to. It was all of a sudden I'm like, here's a replay myself, and that thing ain't getting away from me. It's really interesting holographic replays.
I think it's kind of so that session I did a while back now with Liz Van Houweling, where we did Innsbruck and we were racing each other on the leg snapper and then racing each other on the sprint. This is basically that, but you can just do it on your own. I like that. I like that the Zwift Insider article too has got all the ways you could use it in training, which I really like. So I think I will, because I think you push yourself harder. And I do find that sprints, say, are really hard to get right in a workout, especially if you're on erg mode, obviously. So I like the idea of, I think Eric Schlange talked about the is it the Watopia forward sprint, where you kind of come through the Italian cobbles and it's that long sprint, and then you could just U-turn, turn around, do it again, turn around, do it again. I kind of like the idea of structuring workouts around that, although I do know that Zwift, in the works has got those route-based workouts coming too, which I'm quite excited about. But yeah, I've already called it the hologram, and my one's called Gem. So that probably shows my age, Gem and the holograms. So my little hologram's called Gem. So Gem and I will probably head out at some point and do some rides together. I'm kind of excited for it for, like I said, a PR on Alp de Zwift maybe 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago. I'm kind of keen to use it for those hill climbs, just the kind of a bit of motivation to get ahead of a PR there, because I find it really hard on Alp de Zwift to kind of pace it right to get a PR, because it's so long and, you can't really see the time that you're going to finish it in until near the top. So I'm excited for that reason as well.
Yeah, so one of my main go-to workouts, and I probably will use this once I get into some VO2 max training, is Hilly Watopia reverse. It's about a 350 to 4 minute climb for me. So it's right on that edge of 3 to 5 minutes of what you need for a VO2 all out effort. And so I would do repeats on that and race myself to the KOM though, right? Like I would always be looking at the time, and I would kind of watch the wattage and then just go downhill and then repeat. And like the rest time was just the time it took me to go downhill essentially. So it's just hill repeats. Now having this holographic ghost replay of myself, I can then watch the timing of the efforts and see if there's a way to kind of rig myself to make sure that I'm putting in efforts at the right times, and maybe I'll catch my holo replay at a time I wouldn't actually suspect, because I can see it, right? And I can see where I'm gaining time or losing time in the way I'm doing that effort over the top of the climb. I think it's a really, really great way to motivate myself without just like looking at the clock and suffering the way I would with my Garmin anyways when I'm doing repeats of anything.
I think as well, coming as a triathlete here, and I'm looking ahead to 70.3 Worlds, which I have to do in about 18 months, is don't have to do, I want to do it, is another idea that Eric had was, you go onto Fuego Flats and you ride with a pace partner to set a good time on that sort of, I don't know if this was an idea he had for the future, but I think it's got that segment, that really long kind of orange jersey segment on Tempest Future. So you go with a pace partner and you set a time on that segment at a certain like watt per kg, and then you get on a time trial bike where you don't have the benefit of the draft and you race your hologram who did have the benefit of the draft. So you kind of get like a good time trial target as well. I liked that as a triathlete looking at that, you do have to get on and just do that 20-minute slog or 10-minute slog at a certain pace. So I liked that too, that it wasn't a hill or a sprint. You could actually kind of, in a way, adjust it for time trial efforts as well.
That'd be really interesting. That's like a 10 night. 8 to 11 minute effort, I think, somewhere in there for that Fuego Flats. If you don't know what we're talking about, it's a turnaround at what I sometimes it's called Las Vegas, but it's like that final little oasis of city that's in Fuego Flats. But if you do the turnaround there, there is a section where there's a little banner on the ground that you can see that goes all the way back to the finish arch on Fuego Flats. Check that out. Definitely a great spot to do a longer effort with the holographic replay. Now, this is FutureWorks. Just so everybody knows, it is a FutureWorks feature, which is stuff that's in development that Zwift released so that we can get a use of it and test it out. Light category enforcement was FutureWorks. We had, I mean, there's been tons and tons of different FutureWorks things. So you can see this here if you're watching this live, what was going on with them. These are my two bots hanging out with me at the sprint section of, and you can see my previous as well as my PR for the last 90 days. So what I did just right before this and then my PR for the 90 days are both turned on in game. You can head into the menu as well. It's also FutureWorks. So we did find a little bit of a bug. We were able to get my avatar to fly across the entirety of the universe of Zwift at a very, very high speed. It was really interesting. Yeah. So since it is FutureWorks, if you do find any bugs or anything like that, head on over to the forums and let people know anything that's
I've got to say, Nathan, that first view you had of those two gem holograms at the start line, they look a bit evil, don't you think? They're kind of sitting
haunting.
there. They're kind of, they're like these gray ghosts just being like, give us your best shot, Nathan. Come on. You know, you could just picture them like goading you as you're coming up and you're like, oh man, I don't know. I want them to be friendly, but they kind of just look a little bit evil.
So, okay, next topic, because of the ZRL and we both are streaming and it came up in pre-production and you asked a question. You were like, Nathan, what? What are you talking about? What's stream sniping? And why did you put a delay on your stream? So for those of you that don't know, I mean, Anna, what do you think stream sniping is? I'll just ask you first, like, what do you think is going on in this situation when I use that term stream sniping?
I think I might have it right because I actually thought when I was racing and I had my stream up, I was like, it would be very easy for someone to watch this and hear exactly what I'm telling the team we do at the next sprint, and then we're going to do it. But I always figure because we've got a 15-second-ish delay from me being live to Twitch being live, it doesn't matter. However, I did think in that race, they're still going to hear me talking about what we will do. So when we're saying like, Christy, you go off early on the front, people watching they'll be like, cool, Christy's going to go off early on the front. Is that
exactly. Yeah, exactly. You hit it on the head. And a lot of times in esports, especially when it's a public community space, right? Like, let's say that you are grinding away in a game that is, like similar to what would be free ride or ZRL or like a 3R race. Like everyone can just jump in. It's not a really high-end organized like Grand Prix situation, right? And then you go live and people see, oh, so-and-so is playing. Well, I know I'm in the same game as them. And they come to you and see, oh, I know exactly where he is. And let's gang up on him. Tell your buddies and they go and they come and find you and they kill you or whatever, right? Very similar situation here where especially on Champs-Élysées or what we did a couple of weeks back on Park Perimeter, we had our Leroy Jenkins moment, we call it, where we all just attacked all at the same time from our team. Or we also saw WLC do something similar on Tuesday. The women's team just all attacked at the exact same time on the Champs-Élysées. If anybody was streaming that and somebody was stream sniping them, they could then see the plan if there was no delay on the stream. So a lot of times in esports, what the especially if somebody's streaming like a really high-end level or rank and they're really trying to rank up and they don't want to get stream sniped and taken advantage of, or if there's money on the line, you don't want anybody seeing what's going on. So some people will put up to a 3-minute delay even. Like and you can put it in OBS. That's in the advanced settings. You just go in there, put the amount of seconds that you want, push apply, and OBS will hold on to your stream for that amount of time. It does use up a little bit of memory, and then it'll push it out after that certain amount of time. So I put on a 30-second delay, and I even muted my stream as well. The lap before the final lap, because I made a plan for our sprint finish and was like, I don't want anybody hearing this even on the 30-second delay. So watch out, everybody. If you're out there streaming, first, here's your tip. A lot of people don't know. If they don't watch the rap, you've got an advantage now, right? Like, so since you watched the rap and listened to the rap, now you know you can go watch all these streams that people are streaming their setup. And, well, if they're not putting a delay on, that's on them, right, Anna?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw some chat come through too that a lot of people cover up on their stream what power up they've got, which is obviously a smart idea, except I do that. But then I'm on our chat on Discord being like, I've got an arrow. I've got an arrow. So it's kind of dumb. But I think also, like, I know, like, people have got to be pretty motivated to watch my stream, I think, while we're racing and then take it on board. I think racers who have a DS, that would be easier because they'll just watch it and kind of hear as well as DSing their team. But I also have this opinion where I'm like, okay, you know what we're going to do. Come at it. Like, give us your best shot. I kind of like that idea as well. It's kind of like the old, what is it, like Mathieu van der Poel or those riders where they're like, I'm going to attack right at the start. That's what I'm going to do. Or Pogacar, you know, like, I'm going to bottom to top this climb. Come with me if you can. You know, there's kind of like a little bit of a kind of, not arrogance, but, you know, confidence and just telling everyone what you're
that's
doing.
A good way to put it.
Yeah.
That's a nice way to put it. Confidence. There's kind of confidence. Bring it if you got it. Bring it if you got it. I don't know. I think Zwift Racing is getting so tactical at this point. The element of surprise as well as the throwing chaos into the mix of it all in some sort of way so that they have to respond to you and maybe not know how to. And that is one thing I have to say when it comes to the racing on Zwift. You can get a little bit better communication, though, between people. So it's like those who are communicating get a huge advantage comparatively to those who aren't. It's like the difference between radios in real life racing versus no radios in real life racing, right? Like, there's a huge discussion that goes on about that within the pro peloton. Should there be radios? Should there not be radios in certain situations? And with Zwift, you just have communication with Discord. You can just do it. And if you have that, or if you don't have that, you're just lost in pixels, right? Like, this brings up a whole nother topic of like, hey, if you're not using communication, how are you going to know what's going on? This is right at your fingertips, isn't it, Anna?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, sorry, I've just seen a funny comment coming from Sai. He said, just get dropped and then no one cares what you're doing. So, but I think, one of the craziest experiences I had with live streaming was it was back before World Champs, so you could go ride the World Champs course. And I went out and was, you know, somewhat racing it. And someone came into my Twitch feed and was like, oh, I'm also in the Twitch feed of that guy that you're riding with in your pack. And he's going to attack here. You should go with him. I'm like, what? Okay. And so he had our two streams open and he ended up like pitting us against each other. So me and this random dude who I didn't know end up just like attack and then attack. I think this guy was kind of trolling us a bit, but it made it super fun. And it was a long race. It was like 60K and it was entertaining. So I think that would be kind of fun too. You get someone who's just watching and they tune into, I don't know, someone's stream of your competitors and be like, oh, I just heard Nathan and he said they're going to attack here.
We've had a lot of similar situations, and it's very much like Twitch rivals. Twitch would do a esports competition that they put on specifically, and they would then pit other streamers against each other on purpose. So people would watch all the different streams and kind of see what was happening live between them in the game rather than just one esports broadcast. They would have that main one, but it would almost be like highlighting the streams and highlighting the individuals, kind of trying to create that with Wednesday Worlds. So if you're streaming Wednesday Worlds, let me know, because we might be able to do a little bit of Zwift rivals going on. That would be kind of fun. But all right, next up, this new term for me, cycling code. Genre, I don't know. You tell me. Let us know on socials. Is it called code? Is it called genre? Is it called discipline? I don't know. We'll get Arielle's opinion on that as well, I think. But which one crosses over best to Zwift? There's BMX, track, cyclocross, mountain bike, road, gravel. Anna, what you're gonna have an opinion on this. This one this one's tough to answer for me, and I think I'm really biased with my answer.
So I was kind of became interested in this one when I was trying to find a good warm up protocol for hard racing, like GP. And then the other one was when I started looking at having Arielle on as our guest, knowing that she's a BMXer. And I think I personally, I mean, I don't know BMX well enough, but I know that from what I've seen, from what I've watched, very, very short races and a lot of well, they do that up and down stuff over the ramps and things. So I know there's like hard sort of pedaling and then kind of ease off hard and then ease off. Track is, I think it's, for me, it's between track and cyclocross. Like I think cyclocross, less so now. It used to be when Zwift starts were so hard. And now I feel like Zwift starts aren't actually as hard as they used to be. Like people kind of realize like, oh, there's no point screaming out of the gates. And then there's track like Omnium and things. So I don't think it's like, maybe it's like mountain bike. I don't know. You're a mountain biker. Road is too long. I don't think it's like that. Gravel, no, it's quite long as well. So for me, I think it's like track or cyclocross racing is a good crossover to Zwift.
I think so. At the highest end level of road, I could put that in there. Like at the high level of road, you could put a road as being a really good way to get fast at Zwift. But I think, or to be good at Zwift and cross over well. But I think that underneath like pro Cat 1 level, it doesn't necessarily translate really well for some reason. I'm noticing it. And I think it's because the engine of the individuals on the efficiency side can just put up with, as well as keep your effort low enough that when it's time to go, I'm just thinking of Jay Vine being the world champion currently. And like when it's time to go at a really, really high level, you have that huge engine and efficiency, and the repeated efforts that you might need in Zwift racing aren't going to affect you quite as much. And then you can just like rev it. Leonard Tugel's again, another one that comes to mind with that good crossover. For me, I would have to, on the track, I don't know. I think like they have such a high punch for watts per kilogram, but you do need something pretty steady. And if you don't have really good Zwift craft, you can't really hide too much in certain ways. And I just don't know, like they got a good punch. It depends on the race, but I don't know if like the overall for track is going to be able to cross over really, really well. Ashton Lambie does really well in the world of esports with racing, but he doesn't shine like he does obviously on the track. For me, mountain biking, it seems better than cyclocross because of the steady efforts, and then also because of the insane punch that you have to have, but not traditional old school mountain biking, much more the XCO World Cup that we have now, where you have to have a really high FTP and you got to be able to punch like 700-800 watts, like over again, and then settle in and then do it again and then settle in and do it again. So for me, but my answer's biased because that's my discipline 100%. Like I'm really good at that discipline, but I've always found that I can go with moves and sit in and win sprints in a way that mountain biking has always. But I was also a BMXer. That's how I got into cycling, actually, originally. My first race was BMX, actually, when I was really, really young. So I've always had that punchy sprint. So for me, mountain bike, cyclocross right on its heels, though. Right on its heels. As long as you've got some steady, and I mean, cyclocross is essentially just an FTP effort with over-unders for 45 minutes. So I guess that's pretty good for code. But code, discipline, genre. I think that'll be a good intro for our guest, because I'm going to ask Arielle that'll be what the first question she'll need to answer for us as we introduce our guest out here today. Am I saying it right? Is Arielle Verharin? Which one's correct there for us?
Yeah, I mean, my mom says Arielle. I
Right.
respond to just about anything.
Oh, with your mom.
Verharin is yeah, that's my mom. Verharen's my married name. It's Dutch by origin, but commonly we kind of more say Verhaeren. Again, I respond to anything at this point because it's more complicated, the last name, than my first.
Well, it's great to have you here, Arielle. This is absolutely awesome. You know, you are an Olympian. You ride for the elite team Aonian, which is one of the most successful teams, especially as of late, which is really, really awesome to see that you've been a part of that. Do you want to just give us a little bit of background into your BMX scene and then how you got into Zwift and Team Aonian?
Yeah, I mean, I won't go too far into BMX, but per the previous conversation, if you want a kid to excel on any kind of bicycle, start them on BMX because I think it gives really great foundations for not just sprinting, but bike handling. And we've seen a lot of athletes, Christopher Blevins is one who comes to mind, and in XC right now who's just tearing it up. And I remember Chris at the BMX track, just a fun kid out there racing. And so it's such a family friendly, accessible sport. And that's how I got into it. My dad raced in the late 80s. It was a fun thing for him. And I don't remember not going to the track. My parents say I was off training wheels at 2.5. I was racing by the time I was 5. I was pretty competitive about the time I turned 10. And, my dad worked at a bike shop and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And they just sacrificed a lot to start getting me to national events. And, I won a handful of national titles in my age group. And then at 15, I decided to go pro. I was, I felt like I'd done what I wanted to as an amateur, and there were rumblings about the Olympics and BMX potentially being involved in that. And, at 15 years old, I said, I'm going straight in. I want to race professionally. And so I was a very atypical high school student who would, travel on the weekends to BMX races, racing professionally. So that's a bit of the background. And then from there, I spent the next, decade and a half competing as a part of Team USA. I was an alternate for the 2008 Olympic team, and I made the 2012 Olympic team. And an injury the day before we were supposed to depart to the games, my chain derailed during our final training event and threw me up over the front of the handlebars. I landed on my right side, lacerated my liver, punctured my lung, and spent the next 13 days in and out of the ICU and trauma care as they tried to get me stable. So I, in effect, missed the entirety of the games, which was heartbreaking at the time for sure. But I came back in 2013 and I finished second in the world. And I decided at that point I really wanted to focus on my family. I wanted to be a mom and I wanted to start my coaching career. And so I kind of peacefully transitioned out of BMX, and I didn't go straight to Zwift racing, which would have been quite a remarkable jump. But I spent a couple of years racing mountain bikes professionally, downhill, enduro, and that was really my big goal until I was pregnant with my second son. And at that time, I was also subcontracted by USA Cycling to start doing some strength and conditioning work for some of our team pursuit girls on the track. And so I was delving into some endurance work. I'd also recognized that, like, as good as I was technically at mountain bike racing, I had horrible fitness because my capacity was 30 seconds from spending my entire life on a BMX bike. So I was really kind of researching a lot about physiology. I have a degree in that, and understanding the physiological needs of these track girls who I was now programming the strength and conditioning for to make sure that they were primed and ready for their events. And that's kind of how I fell into Zwift.
We have really, really similar backgrounds. That's interesting that it's also interesting that you mentioned that Chris. I always wondered where Chris Blevins sprint came from. I looked at him going, where is that from? That guy is got an insane kick on the World Cup circuit and coming from BMX.
He was an amazing BMX racer too. He could have gone all the way with BMX if that's what he wanted to. He was quite good. Yeah, good kid.
Huh, interesting. That's really cool to hear. I was told the same thing by my aunt, as well as my parents, 2.5 off of the training wheels, and we had a track in our backyard that my dad had built, and he was on the circuit. So we have very similar. How did you get into cycling stories there? Super, like, very cool to hear. Super cool to hear. So Anna, why don't you take over on the Zwift side of things, though?
Yeah, so as you kind of glossed over there a bit of the and then I found Zwift. But I mean, there's a difference between, finding Zwift and then racing very well on Zwift. So what's your sort of origin story to when you got on? And I'm always intrigued too by people who have been, a very, very top level in real life cyclist, no matter what code, and then come on to Zwift. I mean, some people go, "Oh, this is ridiculous. Like it's a game and I hate it." But obviously you don't. You've come on and sort of embraced it. So can you tell us a little bit about that and also how you found Team AO or Aonian?
Yeah, so it kind of fell into place all at the same time. So it was 2019, I was pregnant, and I wanted a safer way to go ride because I had a hard time going slow and being in control on the mountain bike. I just wanted to go hard and fast, and now I'm pregnant and I've got to be more careful. And so I was working on my fitness that way. I was working with the Team Pursuit girls, and I was seeing what they were doing, and I was seeing a lot of them were using Zwift as a platform in the winter, when they weren't on the track. And so I got a trainer, I hopped on it, I started riding, I started learning and studying more about it. I had my son in January of 2020, and about the time the world shut down, we found out he had a congenital heart defect and with his heart valve. And so we were just kind of super paranoid and terrified about going out. And so all of a sudden, all of my ambitions and dreams of traveling and getting back into mountain bike racing got put on pause. And I'm stuck at home. I'm homeschooling my daughter as well because the schools are closed, and Zwift became my outlet. And, in the beginning, it was about finding my own way of transitioning my body from being this unfit sprinter who had a great sprint, but really wasn't, fit beyond 30 seconds, to seeing what I could do. So I was just doing a lot of training in the beginning, playing with some of the programs, kind of doing some of my own design of programs. And I saw USA Cycling had a series, and that they were launching, and I'm a USA Cycling coach, so I thought, oh hey, I'll do this little race series, I'll see what this racing's about. And I started to have some success with it, and I was getting messages via companion, and I'm a pretty new Zwifter and not understanding the community aspect of it at all. Really, it was for me, it was just for training. And they said, hey, come be a part of our team, come join a team. And I was like, I've never been a team rider. How do I be on a team when I'm in my garage on a trainer, on a computer? Like, it made no sense to me. And so I ignored a handful of them, and then a couple of them came my way again, and I asked, well, why? Like, what's the point what is a point of a team on Zwift? And I really didn't get much response back, except for one girl who said, hey, we were starting this new women's only team, and really it's a community to support other women and to be able to kind of come together. They said, we're an international community, and yeah, racing's a part of it, but it's really to kind of help uplift and build each other. And that's what the name Aonian means, it's all coming together, and we are all one together. And that resonated with me at the time, all of a sudden being isolated alone and thinking you know what, I could use a community right now and be able to kind of learn more. And little did I know that these women that were starting this team were very deep into Zwift. I remember I joined the team, and all of a sudden I'm getting flooded with all these messages about Zwift tactics and racing, and I was like, whoa, this is a whole new world. But they embraced me and they taught me, and I learned so much. And I'm the type of person that I don't do anything halfway. And so when I went all in, I went all in. I did one season of ZRL, and then we were starting the Premier Division, and we were going to field a team, and I happened to have all the equipment necessary to do that. And so I did my first Premier Division as a B-level rider, and talk about a slap to the face in terms of that big step up. And then the rest is history, really. It's become a huge part of my life. The team has become a huge part of my life, and the community that we've built there. And learning all about it. Like I said, I'm 100% in on it now, so I've transitioned quite a bit from what I was 10 years ago.
That's awesome to hear about the introduction to Aonian. I remember when the Aonian team launched and they started doing some of their own events. And yes, definitely very much old school OG Zwifters. And that story you just told tells me a lot more about your journey a little bit, because it definitely goes alongside of Aonian's launch and where they've got to now. And it's really cool to me that you've your own journey and growth in Zwift sounds like it's grown right alongside of that, alongside of their growth. But then also, do you feel like it's similar, like in any way, to what you experienced in your growth in BMX? Or, I mean, because you're racing at the top level now, how is it the same and how is it different? Like, if that would make sense as far as the question goes, like, which way does this genre, code, discipline, I don't know which one, relate over? And maybe you can answer that question first. I have a feeling you're going to say discipline because of your relationship to USA Cycling, and then maybe talk about how it relates or is different from BMX and Zwift training.
Yeah, I mean, I would go discipline. I like the idea of code. I think it's great, but that's just the language I've used. In fact, I had three athletes that I coach in three different disciplines in Tokyo last year. And so one thing that I've learned is high performance is high performance, whether that's at BMX, whether that's track, whether that's Zwift, whether that's mountain bikes. There's a lot of crossover. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that I brought to the table is I know high performance, I coach high performance. So I'm currently coaching elite riders in multiple disciplines right now. And the understanding of not just training, but how to show up and be at your best at a race. That's huge. And that even applies, to Zwift racing for sure. I think the biggest thing is really understanding that you can give more than you think you can give. And, BMX is short. There are a lot of on-off moments within BMX, right? It's a 30-second lap. We don't sprint for more than 5 seconds at a time. So, in my best days, I was sprinting 1400 watts, but I couldn't, you don't hold that, right? It's a 1, 2, 3, 4. And to think of even doing a 10-second sprint back then was ludicrous. We would do testing in the off season sometimes, and it was like we'd do, a 30-second erg test, and it would just trash us. And so, the fundamentals of the physiology are quite different. But when it comes to preparing for an event, for showing up to an event, I was a very tactical BMX racer. I was a decent sprinter, but I was average, I would say, when it came to my sprint. I definitely wasn't among the best sprinters, but I was really good tactically around the track. I was a technical rider, and that's the way my brain works. And so when I got into Zwift, it was like, as soon as I decided, hey, like I enjoy this racing, this is a great outlet for me, a great way for me to do some of the, flex my competitive juices that are still very much alive. I went all in. So I studied. The same approach that I took with BMX is I really tried to cover all the bases and understanding how the game works and understanding the performance needs and understanding what my body needs to do to make it happen.
I guess a question I have as well, being a fellow mom, is does that play a part too? The fact that, if you were going to go down, lockdowns aside, if you're going to go down the mountain biking route, that's weekends away, it's a lot more training out of the house. I mean, do you find that being inside, if your kids need you, you're literally, I can see your bike there, like you're right there. Does that play a part too, just in crossing over to Zwift?
Yeah, it's huge. Like I had ambitions of, even when I retired from BMX, I never fully intended to retire from racing, and the reality of it was I thought I could do it all. And then I had a kid. I have a husband who's in the military. He's currently deployed right now. And so he's gone a lot. We uprooted and moved away from our family in Utah. We live in Virginia, which, tell Buddy Dave, I do appreciate all the Utah comments about being at altitude, but I'm at sea level down here. So, we're thousands of miles away from family, and I don't have a lot of help with the kids. And so, yeah, I would love to do more outdoor racing, and I actually went the weird pathway of I went BMX, mountain bike, Zwift to racing on the road. And I started racing on the road last year. But Zwift has worked out so well with just being able to be present for my kids and be able to be here. My work schedule is also quite busy with athletes. I've got 12 athletes that I work with that are competing full time. And so to be able to navigate and slide in that training without having to be out of the house. My son's napping right now, and that's oftentimes when I'm doing my training is when he's asleep or before the kids wake up. It's been so useful and so helpful that way and so productive, the kind of training I wouldn't be able to get if I was waiting for those opportunities to be outside.
And I guess where to from here? Like, we're getting the impression you're very competitive. You're in the Grand Prix racing, obviously, because you completely demolished me in the last race we had. But we won't talk about that one because that's been done to death now.
I was impressed. Okay, wait, hold on. I was like, this because during the commentary, I was like, whoa, where did this come from? To be honest, Arielle, I was like not expecting you to be hanging with them. And I'm like, okay, she's been putting in work. In the back of my head, I know what it takes to get to that level, especially to cross over from one discipline to another. And over the last couple of years, I'm hearing this story and I'm like, okay, you've really been putting in work, it looks like to me. And I want to know, because I say that during commentary, but like, I kind of want a little bit of same question. Where is this going? And what kind of work have you been putting in to get to that level to change over?
Well, I think it started, in the beginning with understanding with the Grand Prix series what our objectives were as a team. We wanted to do well. We want to put our best riders in the best place. I was actually initially slated for the Dolphin, based on the fact that I can sprint repeatedly. I've had some success doing some outdoor criteriums. But then we had Luz on for the twit, because that course is horrific. And Anna, I will tell you, that is the first time in like recent memory that I have been so sore after a Zwift race that was so short. Like the next day, my legs, my quads were sore, and it's like, that's crazy because it was such a short race. But yeah, we had to come out with a punch. So, as a team, one of the beauties of the team too is we discuss everything. It's not like Carla, our manager, is making all the decisions. Everything is discussed based on strengths, based on weaknesses, based on what's going to be best for the team. It was obvious that Vicky going for the time trial, and that we were going to put Eva on for the climb. Polona has a fantastic long sprint, and so we decided it would be best for her to go for the first race. But then when it got posed that maybe we should put Luz in for the Dolphin because the way that the points spread was, it made sense because she's by far our strongest rider. But then then it got posed, we'll put Arielle on for Twit. And initially I was like, oh, that course is brutal. But we raced it in PD last year and we had to do 4 laps of that course. I managed to finish the top 10 to everyone's surprise, including, I guess, myself. But that's one of the things that I think that I do well at is I rise to the occasion and I'll embrace the challenge for what it is. And so, I already had known the course. I'd already raced the course, and I knew it was just a matter of, putting my best forth in the moment to go after it. I have to say that when the movie star girl, was it Micah, when she launched on the KON that early, I was like, oh no. And I knew I had to go, I had to respond, and the DSs are on, and you got to go. And I'm like, we're so far still. I was dying, and I knew that, my legs were going to die as we got near the top, but, I responded, and Lizzie got away on that, on Pot Bank. And yeah, same thing. We just kind of put your best foot forward, and I guess for me it was a good race, and it was how I hoped it would turn out, that I would be able to get some good points on the board for the team.
Well, the team is for those that might not know, go back and watch that Grand Prix race from last week. Their team is on top right now. Was there a prediction last week, Anna? Huh. Interesting. I'm so glad that we could bring that up.
I lost it again.
Yeah, before we let you go, I have a crystal ball or something. I mean, the Women's Tour de France. I mean, there's just prediction after prediction. Something's going on here. But before we let you go, Arielle, Esports Racing, what's next? Worlds is on your mind, maybe? I mean, you got some success. USA, you're one of the top riders out of the USA. What are you thinking as far as esports and racing goes?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had made the team for this last Worlds that we did in New York, and I was in great shape for it. I was really, really excited about it. And then 4 weeks, almost to the day prior to that, I had this freak emergency surgery. which is actually related back to that 2012 crash. So when I crashed in 2012, they had to do 4 operations, and I had a lot of scar tissue in my abdomen, and I'd been having stomach pains off and on for a few months. I didn't really think much of it. And yeah, one night I ended up in the emergency room with what I felt like was labor pains, and my intestines had twisted up because of that scar tissue. And effectively, a 10-inch portion of my colon was dead. And so they had to go in and do an emergency surgery. And I spent, another 12 miserable days in the hospital in January of this year. And I was devastated because I was so excited to give World to Good go. And I ended up, against doctor's orders, against pretty much everyone's recommendation and advice, still lining up for that because I felt like I had earned that to be a part of Team USA. And it was exciting for me to be able to say I'd represent Team USA at the World Championships in 2 different disciplines, but it wasn't the effort that I wanted, or that I was, wanting to give. My body was super depleted still, and so I am excited for another crack at it this time. I'm excited to see what this format's going to be, how it's all going to play out, and yeah, hopefully this time around I'll be able to give a proper race.
Well, I think,
Awesome.
yeah, I think it's gonna be great, and I do think it'll probably be more towards your wheelhouse. Maybe we'll see. There's a lot more on the line from moment to moment. Thank you so much for your time, Arielle. You obviously have a lot of depth when it comes to the world of cycling, and I hope we're going to see you obviously for the rest of the Grand Prix, and we look forward to Worlds and all the Zwift racing. Thanks a lot for your time out here, and everybody go check out Arielle on her socials, and make sure to follow along with Aeonian. It's been super great to have you here, and we'll see you out on the Grand Prix next week.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, awesome. Wow, holy cow, what an amazing story. I mean, when you said, okay, we're bringing in Arielle Verhaaren, I was like, great, Olympian, BMX, and the story crossing over to Zwift, but there is so much more depth there than just that.
So the reason I wanted to bring her on, one is that I really love Carla, who's the team manager of AO. Sorry, I call it AO, but Aeonian. It's a really, really great team. But the other thing that just with Arielle's story that I really, really liked is that, like I said at the start, there's kind of, I have distinct memories of Julian Alaphilippe Zwifting during the pandemic and rolling his eyes and being like, oh, like this is so dumb. And kind of being like, oh, is this how people who are cycling in real life view this? So they sort of like, this is really stupid. And so I like seeing someone who has been at the extreme top level of in real life cycling come on and go, not only do I enjoy this, but if I want to do well, I've got to take everything I learned in the real world and bring it in here and focus on strength and conditioning, focus on my training, take this seriously. So you can't just come on and expect to be great. I mean, this is some legit riders coming on and taking it seriously. And that's what I liked about Arielle's story, is that there's not kind of like, oh yeah, and I just jumped on and before I knew it, I was on a team and I was performing really well. She's like, I jumped on and I got like my ass handed to me in my first premier race. And then I was like, nope, I've got to put on some proper training. So yeah, I liked her story. That was awesome.
Very awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to see how things go for the rest of her Zwift racing season all the way through our winter here. Well, our favorite part of the show, fashion time. Well, at least Anna's favorite part of the show. I was thinking about this part of the show and I was like, man, how did you get me into this? Like, I'm actually like looking, like last night I did a ride to this pretzel thing going on where I'm like, I mean, anyways, I do have a German partner, so there's that reality. Well, Brazilian to Germany.
Brazilian German.
Yeah, to Germany. I did spend some time, in Munich and checking out some things to do with Oktoberfest, but you got me looking at fashion now, and so does she. What have you done to me, Anna? This is
I know. I can't go. I kind of thought when we started this segment of the show, I was like, am I just going to run out of jerseys? Am I going to run out of this? Every week I'm like, what is that jersey? And I've never messaged so many random people on rides I'm doing to be like, what is that? And I mean, can we go straight to fashion in the field for this one?
We can. We can. Real quickly, I just want to say one thing though. on my ride while I was thinking about what you've done to me, in quotes here, I was thinking about my competitive nature in video games and how I always just ignored skins. I always just ignored the fact. I was like, whatever. I just want to be fast. I just want to be good. I just want to be the best, right? And now, and I've never in a game paid much attention unless it was earned by competing or being the best in some sort of way. I'm so competitive, right? And now, for the first time in all of my gaming, you have changed this about me to where I actually care about things matching or whatever. Like the only reason I ever cared about something in WoW was because it was powerful and oh yeah, that set looks awesome. But it was always secondary to if it was good or powerful or showed that you were amazing at the game. Anyways. Thanks a lot, Anna. Thanks a lot, fashion people, what you've done to me. But I actually love it. All right, let's take a look. So the message I got from Anna when she sent this over was in caps, what is this? And so this was the fashion in the field that she picked up. And it looks like this is a new unlock coming from Zwift around Oktoberfest. And it's Bavarian, actually. It's the Bavarian setup that you have during Oktoberfest. In Germany.
Yeah, so if you go to Zwift Insider, it's the Pretzelfest Rides and Runs announced for October 1st to 21st, and you get the Lederhausen kit. And I was on a, whatever holograph this is, Coco Cadence, riding around being like, what is this guy wearing? He's got this amazing Lederhausen kit. He's paired it with those leather shoes, and he's got some old school leather gloves, but it was the hat. The hat was crazy. But then what I looked is that I don't know how he has this hat because you can only get it
because you can't get it yet. I was wondering the same thing. Last night I did the unlock for the first thing, and then I was like, wait, I want to put the hat on because I was actually sending a picture over to Germany to be like, hey, I have the thing. I was like, hey, check this out. I've got, and so anyways, but I was like, I don't have the hat. And I was wearing it. I had to put on the Zwift Academy hat to match some green at least. Of course, Anna's now got me matching Zwift Academy green to this setup, but
So yeah, I what I'm finding with the fashion in the field is I'm finding a few little interesting fashion bugs as well. But anyway, this rider, so Heinzen, I think it was Ryan Heinzen from Great Britain. If you tune into the pod, can you tell us how you got it all? But yeah, complete stage 1, you get the socks, which are kind of some very, very old school looking woolen socks. Stage 2, you get the shoes. So I think he's got the shoes here, lace up old leather, kind of beat up cycling shoes. And then stage 3 is the Alpine hat, which for those listening, it's just picture the Sound of Music and what they wear in Austria with those hats with the feather coming out. And he's paired it with those kind of retro looking circular sunglasses. Just amazing. And he's also kind of matched the bike with the Cervelo kind of green, which matches the shorts. So this was fashion in the field extravaganza. I lost my mind when I saw this. I actually screamed for my husband. I was like, come down here. Look at this kid. He's like, oh my God. Why? Who cares? I was like, it's amazing. So yeah.
Oh, we need to get him on the scene. Now I'm in your corner. Now I'm like, okay, we need to figure out how to bring people to the dark side of the fashion.
So I'll tell you a funny story though. My husband, he was on Zwift beta. So way back, 2015, 2014, 15, something like that. So he was on Zwift beta and he was riding around. I was like, what is that? And he's like, oh, it's this, new kind of computer game and you ride your bike on there. And he was showing me, I was like, I don't know. No, I just want to listen to my music. I don't want any of that distraction. So he always has me up about the fact that I'm now completely addicted. And originally I kind of totally hassled him for being on it. So I will never have him on the show because he'll remind me of that.
Last night I was thinking about this while doing the unlock, and it would be cool if they had the women's side of the typical dress of Oktoberfest. I actually saw some of that dress, I believe, when I was over in Germany. Gabriella's just coming in. Schumann, who's over in Germany right now, saying that they should have both of the traditional dress would be really cool. Maybe that's something they can develop for next year if it's to add in to that pretzel. What are we calling it?
It's a pretzel fest ride run challenge.
Okay, pretzel fest.
Yeah,
okay, got it.
Pretzel fest. I kind of looked at it, but I was like, oh man, that's There's some long rides I got to do.
Well, you could
And
do the
I'm
B one. The B one was way shorter, so I did the B one, and of course, like there's a group that's kind of doing 3.5 watts per kilogram, not A level, whatever. And then I didn't know we were going up in the B category for stage one. You go up the KOM. I thought we were going to the top, and I was like, wait, what? Like I don't want to do this right now. And then I'm like, wait, it's only 3 more K. How is that? And then I noticed, oh, we stop in that European German type village, which is kind of cool that the finish line was right there. It kind of puts it all together for you a little bit when it comes to timing those alpines.
So I've got a real problem right now is I've really left my Zwift Academy to the last minute. I didn't realize that it closes in like 3 days, and I have 3 workouts on the finish line ride to do. And I want to do the Pretzel Fest. And I'm a bit sick, so I'm like, this is where I've got to make some smart
This
decisions.
is your Grand Prix training, right? Like, just put it all in and then rest until next Friday. All right, you got. I mean, Zwift is just essentially made your plan for you. There you go.
Exactly. I'll turn up to Grand Prix next week. You'll tune into my stream, and I'll just be this haggard ghost of a woman sitting on her bike, going, "I've got all the kit in my garage now," but that's about it.
All right, well, what's our other pick? We've got the Jersey pick. This is an interesting one. And this is an unlock. Is this a level 52 unlock? We've got some, I mean, obviously we just had level 51 through 60 that have opened up. So everybody's discovering some new kits, Anna.
Yeah, and it's I won't say I'm not trying to compete with you, Nathan, but I noticed that you got to 51 before I did, and I'm like, I'm seeing all these people in these cool new kits, and I'm getting a bit depressed because I'm not leveling up as fast as I want to. But this is Katie Spicer again, so she's become my sort of go-to in the fashion garage because she keeps wearing all the new kits whenever I see her. And this is, I'm going to say, this is probably my new favorite kit in Zwift. Before it was the Neokio kit. I am loving this 1980s kit. I'm a girl of the 80s, and this just screams to me like old school video games, like all the toys with these kind of like bright colors, and it's really swished across the back in like crazy lines and styles. She's paired it really nicely with some aquamarine socks and the white shoes. Kind of a weird, the colors I can't pinpoint, like it's almost like a fuchsia, an aqua, and then the shorts aren't a royal blue. They're kind of like a bluey purple. So I don't know what color. Usually I have really good words for that specific color, but I can't tell that one. And then the yellows. I like it. I think it's going to turn some people off. What do you think, Nathan?
It's like I have the sentimental part battling with like, my eyes hurt. Like I have that like 80s sentimental, like, oh yeah, I like that. And let's go to Skate World and, listen to early 90s, late 80s music and skate around and dance on roller skates. And I don't know. And I have a question for you, Stranger Things or House of the Dragon, after you said you're an 80s girl, or, which one is yours going to be your favorite then too? But I'm very mixed feelings about this, but if you put it with the right bike, I think if you can match the whole thing, okay. But otherwise you're just going to have painful eyes.
Yeah, I think it's not too bad to match because that aquamarine color, I know that the Canyon Aero Road and also the Chapter Toa bikes, you can color scale it to match that almost perfectly. So I think that's pretty good. Do not pair this kit with the Zip Super 9 wheel, the real colorful Zip wheel. Do not pair it with that. That will look terrible.
This?
Really,
that
really
thing? Because this is your garage pick. This is your garage pick. And it does fit pretty well with what your the Jersey pick is, the Chapter 2 Toa, but you do have that, I don't know, pinwheel. I don't know, what do you call that thing? On the back.
Oh, I love it. That Zwift, the Zips. I think it's a Super 9. I call it the Superfly because it just looks rad, and it also slightly changes color depending on how you color scale your bike. But yes, I wanted to garage pick is the Chapter 2 Toa. Now, the reason I picked this is it's actually a New Zealand company. Chapter 2. It's a type of bike. They're kind of a dad and son combo coming out of New Zealand who design bikes, and they've got a lot of awards for just how beautiful their bikes are. It's probably something I would really love to have in real life. The Toa, it's their racing bike. But yeah, it's just a beautiful sort of bike style. I love anything that color slided. So you've got the Chapter 2 Toa and the Canyon Aero Road that can be color slided. That's awesome. And by color slide, I mean when you pick the bike, there's the slider on the side and you can spray paint it different colors. That's just always going to win out for me. And I don't know, maybe Kiwi Girl, but it's really great. They color slide it so that it's kind of a fade at the front, and then you've got just the logos and just a little bit under the seat that change color too. So nice little detailing.
I do like that detailing, that it has the fade in there and very, how do I say, sharp. It's distinct. It's distinct. I like the Chapter 2. It's grown on me. I'll say that. It's grown on me, the Chapter 2 for sure. Toa.
Nice.
Chapter
What bike
2
did
Toa.
you Toa? What bike did you and Toa means I think in Māori like succeeding or winning or kind of like, yeah, so it's a nice sort of
Conquering.
word there as well.
Gotcha.
Conquering, yeah, exactly. What did you ride for Champs-Élysées? What bike was it?
Fastest setup. I just did the DT Swiss with the Venge. Yeah, just went straight fastest speed setup because I think accelerations and holding that speed is going to be most important through and our speeds are just so high, that I'm kind of at the point where I think the middle of the road or the swap to a really lightweight, it just has to be where you slow down a lot. Like there just needs to be a lot, and Champs-Élysées, the speeds just stay high enough that I'm not sure that it's going to matter a lot amongst certain fields. Though it depends on the field, like watt per kilogram and speeds are going to matter. And like if the field is going to be going 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers per hour slower, and the watts are lower, I'm not sure that that's the right setup actually. So I don't know. Like I'm not sure. I just feel though that, and it worked out for me. If I wanted an FIL, I almost got everyone that I want. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
There we go. Humble brag.
yeah. Well, so that's going to be it. Besides what's coming up for the next week, we've got the men's Grand Prix with the team Omnium tomorrow. We're super excited about that. Really looking forward to seeing how something very different is going to play out for the Grand Prix. Dave is actually away with quite a few Zwifters. I know that Michael Sweet, Whitney Post, who are viewers of a lot of the ZCL stuff, are heading over, as well as a lot of others that are in the Midwest and Michigan are going to do the Belgian Waffle Ride Michigan. Belgian Waffle Rides have been a extremely like a movement, and a growing, extremely popular cycling movement within the gravel world. And that's happening this weekend on the 9th, and they're actually having some mountain bike races. That's in Traverse City, Michigan, actually. I know the only reason I'm bringing that up is because it's related to Zwift, and that I know a lot of the Zwift community will be around that, and Dave's going to be there and commentating, etc. And that's also one of the next things I'm training for, and what I'm training for this weekend is also in Traverse City. But I'm not what I'm doing for training. I'm not going to BWR, but I'm training, looking forward to Iceman. That's also in Traverse City, the first week of November. So I think I'm gonna be doing tiny races on Saturday morning, thinking about being in Michigan in the BWR and not being there. And then I would probably do a KISS 100 race on Sunday. At least that's the plan as of right now.
Nice. I have got some kind of a cold, so I'll see how I feel when I wake up tomorrow. But it looks like the weekend, if I feel okay, it'll be a lot of Zwift Academy workouts,
Catching up.
and some Pretzel Fest.
Is anybody else
Yeah.
Is anybody else needing to catch up? That's what we want to know. Let us know. Did you leave it to the last minute? Have you finished all of your Zwift Academy so far? Let us know. We've actually had a lot more comments this past couple of weeks over on YouTube. It looks like it's getting some attraction. So we really appreciate all the comments, everybody. And we'll be watching out for those. The viewership on YouTube is really going up. As always, we've been live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, as well as Facebook. Make sure to follow, like, subscribe, comment, do all that fun stuff. It helps out the stream. This also is a podcast that's available on, right? It's all the podcast places?
Everywhere.
Right? And we hit a milestone, over
everywhere.
5,000 downloads or something like that, I think, at this point.
Yeah,
There.
it's going pretty bananas. Like we're getting a lot of downloads on that. So we hit over 5,000. We're getting close on 1,000 downloads a week now, which is pretty nuts. And
I think
it's
that's
funny
top
because I keep getting
5%. You said something like that when it comes to podcasts.
sitting in the top 5%. So it's nuts, like crazy. And I think it's funny. I'm getting a whole lot of emails from people who are like, we'll advertise. Da-da-da. I'm like, no, it's kind of nice just keeping it nice and clean, just the chatting. We're not going to start advertising, air mattresses and weird things like that. So we'll keep it nice
Air
and
mattresses.
tidy. Yeah.
How can we?
This is
how
weird
are we
stuff.
going to sell air mattresses to Zwifters? Let's go. Next project, Anna.
Yeah.
There
we go.
Instead of the bucket, we're not selling buckets anymore. Now it's fall over on your air mattress for Zwift. It's got built-in air conditioning.
That'll be the Zwift air mattress. There we go. Let's do it.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you for Grand Prix tomorrow. We'll see you next week for episode 13. As always, have a great time Zwifting. This was October 6th, episode number 12 of The Wrap. And ride on.